hear the violins?
Oh.
Cry me a friggin' river.
Exactly.
Honestly.
Yeah. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel.
Welcome back to another much requested video. We love that you guys sent us exactly what you want us to produce. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is the most requested video review of the year so far. Like just so...
It's only January, but still.
I know, but like literally so many requests. So we just had to do it.
We had to do it. Okay, you guys
we
want
happen to be
know.
living somewhere that has Netflix for the first time ever.
That's right.
Yeah?
So finally we can Netflix and chill, baby.
Because in the past we've had so many requests, oh, can you review this on Netflix? And we're like, we don't have it. So
very handy.
It was meant to be.
It was. Can we get on with it?
Let's go.
Awesome. So you guys wanted to know our thoughts on the Netflix documentary series Rotten.
6-part documentary series, and you guys in particular wanted us to focus on the one regarding chicken and the one regarding dairy.
Okay, so first of all, aptly named Rotten.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the series was rotten.
It was, yeah. It could also have been named several other things like deceptive.
Delusional.
Delusional, that's a good one.
Both good words.
We could go on.
Yeah,
right.
Look, I thought, and it is rotten in terms of, look, the food production system, because that's what they're looking at. They're looking at bees. We've got a video on that. We'll link that down below. They're going on peanuts, garlic, chicken, milk.
And cod. We started watching the cod one and got about 15 minutes in and then stopped.
They all have the ones that we've watched, the chicken one, the milk one, and the fish one. They all have the same themes anyway.
It's that the food system is broken.
Which
right?
it is.
And look, let's play good cop, bad cop. Because I said to Luca, I'm going to be a good cop in this video. And he's like, I'll believe it when I see it. But look, I think there are benefits in this documentary series because it puts
She's playing good cop now.
Just buying my time, my brownie points. Because it puts the topic of food and our food system on the table for discussion. Yeah. So that's a good thing.
Unintended.
Yeah. That's a good thing because I think the majority of people just consume. We eat, and we don't even think. We don't think about where food comes from.
Good point.
Right? Yeah. The negative is...
that they focused on the people within this food production system as being the victims.
Yes.
And they ignored, by and large, the real victims, the animals, when it comes to the chicken one and the milk one.
And the cod one.
And the fish one.
And we can assume the same thing with honey. We just haven't got to that yet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're definitely focusing on the human perspective of being the victim of the food industry. But also, what I don't like is that...
Which just to be fair, it's absolutely terrible.
It is,
the conditions that a lot of people have to work in these food industries, the ones that involve the animals as well as those that don't, are terribly exploitative. It's not fair for
anyone. For the workers and also for the farmers. We're going to talk about this later on. You know, it's not a good scenario for any being involved.
Yes, the food production system is broken and we do need to change it.
Yeah.
It's just that I think the real victims have been ignored.
Absolutely. In this series, definitely.
Yeah. The humans are victims as well, but not.
They're
to
not
the
having
same...
their heads chopped off. Let's face it.
Yeah.
Okay, you know your bank. We'll get to that, right? Hold on. So what I did want to say is what I don't like about this series that we've seen so far is that I don't feel like it empowers people.
Yeah.
I feel like it gave a whole lot of negativity, and by that it is also realistic. So that is the good thing. But it gave here are the problems. What's the answer? Where's the solution? They didn't lead people to the solution, which of course is eating a plant-based diet in many of these topics that they're talking about.
For people's health, for the health of the environment, and for the lives of animals, most importantly.
Now, of course, when they're talking about the peanut problem and garlic breath, they're two that are obviously plant foods. We haven't watched them, so, you know, obviously people are eating plant foods in those episodes. But if we, again, just focus on the ones that have to do about animals, you know, the answer for that is to eat a plant-based diet. But they didn't even mention that at all. So that's the problem. I feel like it was a lot of fear-mongering.
Yes.
Here's the fear-based stuff. Here's the fear-mongering. Here's all the victims. Here's all the problems in the world.
What can you do?
What can we do?
We're not going to offer any solutions.
Local farmers, backyard, the really expensive organic stuff that no one can afford.
Yeah, the premium happy meat.
So, all right. What we did was We wrote a whole heap of notes.
We did.
On
one for Big Chicken and one for Milk Money. So we're just going to refer to these, jotted down some things, because they're like 50 minutes long, each of them. So there's a lot of material in.
Let's start with Big Bird. That was the first one.
Big Bird. It's interesting, the first thing that caught me about this title, it reminded me of the video by nutritionfacts.org called Chicken Big, which was a play on the film Chicken Little. Yeah, because chicken is fattening and it makes people big.
Yes.
So which it does, but they didn't touch on that, of course.
We
that
digress.
Wasn't the angle. Straight away.
Okay, so the whole focus of Big Chicken was, got me confused now, of Big Bird, was again that there are problems in the industry. It's from the top down, so the big corporations own these farmers, own these big factory farms, and they're kind of like they dictate what the farmers do, and there's just so many problems in the industry, and this trails down to the prices and the market and what the consumer gets, and
and just on that, the focus was all about the economics. And I've written down some words that just kept coming up. I mean, listen to this. Yields, growth, business, harvest, speed, volume, scale, production, supply, demand, maximise profits, contract, commodity market, assembly line, livelihood, and consolidation. So again, you can see the actual victims, the chickens, not even in that equation. They're all of that language. It's like talking about a stock market.
Well, that's exactly what the whole series was.
The animals are commodities.
That's right. It was all about the business side of things, you know, the money. Currently, chicken is the most farmed animal on the planet. Do you remember the stats?
I've got them written down here, actually. 9 billion chickens in the US alone and 58 billion chickens worldwide.
58 billion chickens worldwide. We're only 7 billion
7.5 billion people,
Oh my God.
Chickens represent around, I think, 98% of all farmed land animals. Because I think there's about 60 billion land animals killed every year and 58 billion of them are chickens.
So they are the most oppressed food animal on the planet. So this farmer...
They're the most oppressed species on the planet.
Right.
Full stop.
This farmer, that was one of the farmers that was featured in the bird episode, said we need to double yields by 2050. Is this guy out of his mind? Holy shit.
Let's make it doubly worse for the animals, for people's health, and for the environment.
You know, but that's the mentality that the farmers were coming from. You know, we need to feed more people, we need to do more. That's not the solution. Animal agriculture is not the solution to anything. We have to switch to plant foods.
That's right. It's not sustainable for the current world population of 7.5 billion people, and it's certainly not going to be sustainable for the projected world population in 2050 of 9 billion people.
That's right. Now, what was interesting is that the documentary did focus on kind of like the mass scale of factory farming of these animals.
Yes.
They said that this business creates lives. Now, just listen to that. It creates lives. AKA we breed
them into existence so that we can kill them.
And harvests them.
Again, you harvest plants.
You chop the heads off animals.
That's right.
At breathtaking speed and volume. So again, I think it's great that they're acknowledging that this happens on a ridiculously massive scale.
Yeah, I mean these sheds in which they house the birds can contain 20,000 chickens. And some farmers have up to 16 of these sheds, so you're looking at 300,000 plus birds.
Wow.
Now, 20,000 chickens in a shed, and they can be considered free range because they're not caged. So 20,000, the shed is just one big cage.
It is, yeah. One of the most alarming parts of the Big Bird documentary was the focus on a Vietnamese American farmer who had this really warped, twisted relationship with the chickens.
Yeah, I can give you an example here. At one point, he picks up a chicken, one of the 20,000 in one of his 16 sheds, and then I think he places him or her back down, and in doing so says, "I'm sorry I had to pick you up. So, you know, I'm sorry I inconvenienced you, I'm sorry I had to interfere with your personal space and boundaries and what have you," which was all very sweet and endearing, but you're raising that chicken and the other 320,000 to have their throats slit. What are you apologising to it for, you know, picking it up and having to put it down?
The cognitive dissonance was extraordinary.
I have another example. Have you got one too?
I've got some too, yeah. He was speaking about these chickens, about these birds as they're my love, they're my passion, they're my children.
Yes.
He referred to them as my baby. So again, if we were to Oh,
Yeah.
would he seriously treat his children like this? Would he treat his baby like this? Because these chickens are slaughtered when they're still babies. So you can't love these animals and be affectionate to them and consider them your children and then be happy to sell them to have their throats slit and their heads chopped off and then eat their bodies.
And
it was so alarming.
Warped. Yeah.
Warped, that's a good one.
And he was in such a state of denial because later on, when they talk about this economic crime in 2015 of a serial mass slaughter of chickens, he says...
and not to actually eat, not the regular system of slaughter of chickens. There was someone going around and basically killing the chickens to put the farmers out of business.
Yeah. Anyway, he says, I don't want a single one of them to die. So when they die, it hurts.
I mean, he sells these
you're
birds.
raising them to be murdered.
He sells them at 42 days old. That's 6 weeks.
They're babies.
They're babies. I mean, they look huge because they're bred that way to grow very big, very fast, but they're still babies. So you are killing them. You are killing them. Oh, okay.
Total denial.
An interesting thing we found was that when the farmers were talking about the birds, their concern was coming from an economic standpoint. So their concern was that the birds could grow big, that they were comfortable, that they didn't die, because they needed to be right and ready to sell for profit.
Yeah, exactly. So
a dead bird is no good to them.
That's right. One of the examples was, making sure the climate was temperature controlled to make the birds comfortable. Otherwise, and there are certain optimal conditions in which the bird will thrive so that it
at different stages of its life.
That's right.
Age.
So that it'll reach a market weight within the 42-day prescribed period, under their contract.
So that was the focus of the farmers. Make sure the birds are all comfortable and safe and everything, not because they actually cared about the welfare of the birds.
Which is kind of how it was passed off, wasn't it? In a way?
Kind of initially. You think, they actually care about the welfare of the bird. It's not the birds' welfare for the bird's sake. It's the bird's welfare for the farmer's profit.
For their bottom line's sake, exactly.
So it does that. That did come through eventually, but initially you're thinking, but they actually care. No, they care about what they're paid at the end of the day.
Yeah. One thing a farmer said to emphasise what you're saying is, the chicken is our bank, so we have to take care of them well. There you go.
They said it themselves.
So going back to that economic crime of 2015 with the serial mass slaughter, the victims were pitched as...
the corporations and the growers, aka the farmers.
Not the chickens that were slaughtered by the tens of thousands, but the chickens, the growers and the corporations, because their economic welfare was affected.
And they said these mass killings were an economic crime. So it's a crime to kill animals en masse when it affects business and profits. But in a slaughterhouse, it's totally legal and acceptable when there is money to be made. In that scenario, it's not a crime, it's simply business as usual.
And all they need to do is strategically replace the words mass killing for harvesting, and consumers are none the wiser. And let's remember that mass killing of animals happens 24/7 in slaughterhouses. And that's exactly what these chickens were raised for in the first place, to be killed en masse.
So I guess that was the main thing that came out of the Big Bird episode.
Yeah.
And look, I have to be honest here, I know this sounds ridiculous. I understand what the farmers are saying, and I understand where they're coming from. If I really, really tried to put myself in their position.
Good cop.
And this comes through in the dairy episode as well, so I'll talk more about it then. When you are doing the same thing your entire life, that's all you know, you're a farmer, and this is what you do for a living, they actually think they're doing a good thing. I don't think anyone ever does anything thinking that they're bad. So they think that they're providing food for the country. This is a great thing.
Because
amazing.
Animals are considered normal, natural and necessary to be eaten by humans.
Yeah,
that's carnism, the invisible belief system that we have as a society and culture.
Yeah, so these farmers think they're doing a good thing. They're feeding people. They're not doing anything wrong in their eyes. And so I just tried to force myself to put myself in their position to think about the whole situation of, okay, the big corporations are just completely dominating my life and my business, and this affects my family and everything.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
You can try and sympathise with them. I get it.
And yet at the end of the day, they are effectively modern day slave owners.
Yeah.
They're just, the species that they own is different. They're non-human animal species versus human animals, which, it was only 150 years ago that we still had human slavery.
Yeah.
And I guess the slave owners, when the abolition of human slavery came in...
Could have used exactly the same arguments that I just
we've been victimised, blah, blah. But, that's never a justification.
No, of course
economic
not.
loss... You just have to change the product line.
That's the thing. All right, so that leads us into milk money. Now, I mean, so appropriately named.
Yes.
It's like, wow. Why don't you just tell us what direction you're going in there, guys?
And I was going to say, you can actually just read the one-line synopsis on the Netflix Rotten website for each of the Big Bird and Milk Money episodes, and you know exactly how it's going to be pitched. So Big Bird, for example, the ruthlessly efficient world of chicken production pits vulnerable growers against each other and leaves them open to vicious acts of sabotage. So there you go. The farmers will be the victims, and the actual victims, the birds, will be ignored completely.
How about vicious acts of slaughter? Yeah, that's what we need to be focusing on. Milk money.
Changing diets and dramatic price swings have put dairy farmers on the ropes, like Rocky Balboa, they're the underdogs, and fueled a surge in lucrative but controversial raw milk sales. So again, the dairy farmers are on the ropes. They're the victims.
Oh, yes.
Again, not the cows.
No, it's all about the farmers. So this episode about milk, we kind of... did you hear the violins? Cry me a friggin' river.
Exactly.
Honestly.
Yeah, that's what the series could be called. Yeah, Cry Me a River. So the fear-mongering kicked off right from the get-go. One of the narrator says, you're drinking a lot less milk than you used to.
Oh, wow.
So...
that's a bad thing. I better drink
more,
Look, this episode really... infuriated us to, I just can't even describe, but it was also wonderful to see dairy industry dying. I mean, guys, it is dying. They said
people don't realise that we're fading.
Oh, yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Everyone knows it.
In fact, the dairy industry knows that it's fading, and that's why it's investing in plant-based milk companies.
Yes, yeah.
Because it knows that's the way of the future, and that dairy is a dying industry. It'll be the first of the animal products industries to go.
What did they say? Did they say we'll give it, things will really be changing in 10 years or something? They said something about the 10-year mark.
I can't recall, but...
Something about, in 10 years' time, and we're like, give it 5. Why 10? Give it 5. Okay, so what they did with the milk episode was they focused on raw milk as being the big competitor, organic raw milk, to regular pasteurized conventional milk. No mention of plant milks. This blew our minds. How can you not talk about plant milks when you're talking about the dairy industry dying?
Yeah, exactly.
It's plant milks that are killing the dairy industry, not raw milk. But they didn't even go there. They didn't mention it at all.
It wasn't even put on the table as an alternative, as an option.
So, and I think that says everything. I think it says everything. I think, if they even gave people planted the seed, pardon the pun, of plant milks, it would poof, the dairy industry would finally explode as it is. So... They
spent a lot of time glorifying the iconic family dairy farm, didn't they? This was painful.
You learn everything on a farm, all of life's ups and downs. I get to pass it down to my kids. And it's all this family. We work together, we live together, yada, yada. You raise slaves together. You slaughter animals together. And you rip babies away from their mothers together. That's what you do, dairy industry.
And yet it was pitched to elicit sympathy from the viewers for small dairy farmers. So, I've been doing this as long as my ancestors, blah, blah, blah.
I have to work several jobs just to pay the bills.
Yeah, we work long hours. I'm up early. I milk them twice a day. It was a family bonding experience.
The kids get involved. They do the chores after school. We're all in it together.
It's a sacrifice. Farms are closing down. We've been driven out of business, so it's tough. You
get the idea.
The violin. Yeah. Ironically, at one point they say, if you eat food, this is an issue you need to be worried about. And they showed a baby dairy calf at that exact moment that had been separated from its mother because, of course, we can't have the dairy calf sucking up all of its milk, that needs to be taken, stolen from the calf and the mother for humans to consume. So, yes, we need to be worried about it, but not for the economic reasons and the, death of the,
dairy industry. We need to be worried about it because you're separating a baby from his mother.
Yeah.
That's what we need to be worried about.
And that baby is ultimately going to either be killed or sent in to replace its mother once its mother's exhausted, and then it'll be killed. It's just,
It's crazy. It was good, and again, I think only as probably a vegan or someone that's aware of the dairy industry that would notice this, but they did not show the mothers and the babies together at any point. In fact, you saw the babies separated either in the hutches, changed to the hutches, or just
little prison cells.
Yeah, or just in a separate area fenced off from the adult mothers.
Yeah.
So they were never together. The babies were being bottle fed by the female farmer, and it's shown as though it's a good thing. Look, we take care of these babies. It's a sacrifice. These babies don't need you to bottle feed them. They need to be suckling on their mother. You took them away from their mother, and therefore now they're your responsibility. Oh, poor you.
Yeah.
It's like humans go and create the problem and then come out to be the martyr and the but look, I have to fix all of this. You bloody well caused it.
Exactly. Imagine we took a dog and we artificially inseminated her, and then she gave birth to a litter of puppies. And on the first day of giving birth, we took that litter of puppies away and we put them in a separate place that they couldn't, the mother and the babies couldn't talk to one another. And we fed the baby puppies ourselves, and we worked round the clock, to feed them at, regular intervals and what have you. But it wasn't the mother's milk, it was like a milk replacement. And then we cried and said, I've had to work so hard caring for these puppies, and, while we're stealing the actual mother's milk and then selling it off to Koreans and Chinese, for example, who eat dog meat. I'm just, it's an analogy here.
Exactly. If you've replaced the animal, all of a sudden it's such a warped concept of what we do, and it's just like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
but that's what we do to dairy cows.
Yeah. Because ultimately, if we think about it, what is the difference between cow milk, dog milk, rat milk, gorilla milk? There is no difference.
No.
We've just been conditioned to believe that we need cow's milk. We're humans. Why would we need cow's milk? We need cow's milk no more than we need giraffe milk and all the other species of animals' milk.
Exactly.
So at one point they say that the cow produces around 7 gallons of milk a day, which is 25 times more than 15 years ago. So
and you can see their udders were massive.
Weren't they? Absolutely engorged. Now, if you see a cow in the wild, there aren't any left, but let's just imagine you did.
Those that haven't been genetically bred to be enormous and produce so much more milk.
Yeah, and they're nursing just their baby calf, who the milk is designed for, and, no humans are intervening. The udders are, just a manageable size, a normal size. But these udders are engorged, and they can't walk properly.
Yeah, they're swaying. It's so.
Can you imagine how uncomfortable? I mean, I don't have breasts, but I can imagine how uncomfortable it would be.
Absolutely, and the farmers. Again, I'm trying to play good cop here. Of course, they didn't show anything like, they're not beating the cows, they weren't violent to the cows. The definition of violence, of course, is very loose here.
Yeah.
But, it wasn't anything graphic like you see on those terrible videos that are passed around on the internet, for example. So, they were patting them, they were calling them girls, which I found disgusting, but anyway. They were kind of being affectionate to them. So they see them, again, it's this warped thing.
It was the same as with the chickens.
They see them as part of the family, we raise them, we love them, but we're still going to use them, they're still commodities, we use them for money, and at the end of the day, we're going to kill them.
The other thing was they talked about dairy being a global market now, and they're exporting dairy to countries where dairy has not traditionally been consumed, like Mexico, South Korea and China. And I thought this is an exploitation of the people of those nations to whom dairy is traditionally foreign, and they're going to be introducing all of the diseases, or the diseases are already there because they're already eating animal products, but dairy is like liquid meat, so all of the health problems that come with meat also come with dairy consumption. So they're going to be finding increased incidences of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, some forms of cancer and other leading diseases.
And obesity.
And obesity, that's saturated fat and cholesterol in dairy milk and all animal products and secretions promote.
And we saw this in Thailand. I mean, we've spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia. They have Dairy Queen.
That's right.
Just walking around eating dairy, it's not something that you are used to seeing in Asia. That's not part of their traditional diet.
In fact, when the first white people came to Southeast Asia, I think it was the French that came to Thailand, that what they said was they could actually smell the dairy emanating from the pores of the skin of the white men because dairy was so foreign to the Thai culture that it was...
detectable. It was detectable through smell.
Incredible,
yeah.
Huh?
So
it's an exploitation of the people of those nations. Yeah,
definitely. Okay, so one of the things, as we said, was really focused on was the growth of the raw milk market, and they were talking about, is it safe? Should it be legal or not? And going into all the diseases that could possibly come out of the bacteria found in raw dairy.
And apparently, according to science, the consumption of raw milk is associated with 150 times increased risk of disease compared to pasteurized conventional milk.
And we were thinking, did you ever realize that you don't need to drink the milk at all? That's the thing. They didn't give the solution that you don't need to drink it. It was either pasteurized conventional milk or organic raw milk.
Yeah, which is 150 times more likely to promote disease, right? But apparently, remember, milk used to be promoted as nature's perfect food?
Yes.
Yeah, for baby cows, not for human beings.
But that's what was so interesting. They showed the whole process of taking raw milk and pasteurizing it.
It's the most unnatural process.
Oh my God, it was ridiculous. It goes through machines, you go watch the temperature, they do this and that. It's like, we are sick. We're such a stupid species. Why are we doing that to consume something that makes us so sick? It's ridiculous. Anyhow, the only, I wanted to say, they showed the most ridiculous thing. Europe has raw milk vending machines, and they showed a woman filling up her bottle of raw milk and chugging it down in the middle of the street saying, I just love raw milk so much. It's like...
And then popping it into a handbag to consume throughout the day.
About a 40 or 50-year-old woman carrying around breast milk of another species in her handbag. It is ridiculous. It was just like a meme come to life.
Yeah. Why are we still breastfeeding once we've been weaned off our mother's breast milk? And why are we drinking the milk of another species? Everybody knows that dairy is absurd if you think about it, and bizarre, and yet we continue to do it. Well, not for much longer.
No, definitely not. Now, speaking of which, the only time the word vegan was mentioned was by the raw milk farmer named Chaz, I think. Yeah. Chaz was apparently once I used to be a vegan. Yeah. No, you weren't, Chaz. You used to eat a plant-based diet at best. He actually said that I've always...
dairy is something I've always loved and wanted to get into. So if you were vegan, how is that possible?
Oh, God.
And it was very much out of context as well. Like there was no reason to mention that he was vegan. I think for me it came off as, see, even a vegan loves dairy so much that ultimately they'll go back and cave and couldn't resist.
And open up your own dairy farm.
It reminded me of that video we made on the former vegan turned butcher. It's propaganda, BS.
He did not look convincing at all when he said it. I think he looked nervous, like, are they going to buy it or not? Yeah. Anyway, that's the only time vegan was mentioned. Yeah. All right, so let's
Very strategic.
Very much so. Let's jump to the end of the Milk Money episode. The way it ended, it was like, if we didn't think it was bad up until now, jaw-dropping ending.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know how to start. Okay, so basically they were talking about that these dairy cows are actually going to be slaughtered for meat, for beef. They said...
Hamburger meat, generally.
We're not just raising dairy cows, we're raising beef cows, beef cattle. They told the audience, if you're vegetarian, you are still contributing to the slaughter of animals for meat if you're consuming dairy.
That's why we went vegan, because as vegetarians we didn't know that information for a period of time, but this was some years ago now when the information wasn't as prevalent on social media as it is today in 2018. So,
and then you've got it on mainstream Netflix. The farmers themselves are telling you we're not just raising dairy cows.
Dairy equals meat equals murder.
Yeah. So it ends with they're having this family discussion around the table full of food about they're so sad that they have to choose one of the calves that has grown too big now to be sent off for beef. And the female farmer is really distressed about this because, again, she's the martyr and she's the victim and she's the one that tore the baby away from his mother and she raised him and he's so big now, but I have to make the decision and send him off to slaughter.
And she's looking, worried and stressed.
Like she was almost going to cry. Oh. And she's having this discussion. Here's the clincher. you? Oh my God. While they're feeding meat and patting the family dog.
This is one aspect of speciesism. Not only do we, think that we're superior to all non-human animals, but then we think that some species of animals are superior to others. So, like dogs more than cows. It's just...
It's incredible. She actually said, I've got a quote here, "We raise them from birth." Again, no one's asking you to raise these cows. Leave them with their mother. Don't breed them at all.
That's right. I mean, the cows are forcibly impregnated. You're forcing the cow to be pregnant and give birth. And then you're saying, I had to raise, and then stealing the baby away and saying, I had to raise it.
So infuriating.
But again, we say this all the time.
Yeah.
The perpetrators often portray themselves as victims in order to take attention away from the real victims.
Yes. And again, I'm going to put myself back into the good cop shoes. She actually said, we're working for the greater good. Or he did at some point. One of the farmers said, we're working for the greater good.
I think it was her dad later on.
They actually believe that what they're doing is a good thing. And this is what I think is so distressing, delusional and heartbreaking.
And rotten.
Yes. They actually think that they're doing the right thing. And I think once you're in the situation, you can't see it for what it is. Because again, if that's all you've ever known and that's all you've done... and as a kid, if you look up to your parents, they're farmers, look how hard mum and dad work, and we care about our cows and we're making food for the country, we're doing a good thing. Mum and dad don't hurt the cows. We help them, we grow them, we harvest them, we take care of the babies by chaining them up in a hutch and bottle feeding them. So they don't see anything wrong as kids. They grow up and then they say, I'm going to start a family farm just like my mum and dad did. And then I'm going to pass it down to my kids and the next generation. Yeah. And that's how we have this absolute mess in 2018.
That's right, because as soon as the kids are born, as parents, we place the speciesist glasses and the carnist glasses on the child, and they will see the world through those lenses of speciesism and carnism, and therefore grow up to think that our treatment of animals and use of animals is normal, natural and necessary, and they won't see anything wrong with it. It's only when someone gets exposed to education that they can begin to remove those glasses and then can see the world clearly for the first time and how it works and how rotten it is and how perverse it is.
And there are many farmers who have educated themselves beyond... it's funny, educated themselves. They're the ones doing it. I think the word is just maybe waking up, seeing it for what it is. And they have actually sold the business, sent the cows to a sanctuary for the rest of their life to be taken care of.
Look at Howard Lyman. He went on to become a very passionate vegan advocate from Cowspiracy.
So there is hope. There is hope. Yeah. But it is obviously a lot harder for people who have grown up with this and think it's normal and they're in the business.
That's right.
And it's their livelihood too.
But only need to change the product line.
Yes, that's the thing. You don't have to go out of business. You just make plant milk instead of dairy. Simple.
Or get another job.
Well, he's already got 3. And this is the thing, they were harping on about how hard it is and everything. Well, why would you put yourself through it? Why do you continue to put yourself in the most difficult situation to earn a living? And then they're complaining about how it doesn't even pay the bills, it doesn't...
Try being a vegan activist.
Yes, exactly.
And then complain to us about finding it difficult to pay the bills with the work that you do, with the line of work you do.
Exactly. Yeah. Defending animals rather than exploiting them. That's where cry me a river.
So that's our review of Rotten Guys, Big Bird and Milk Money. What did you think? You've already let us know in a few messages, but we'd love to hear from you in the comments down below.
Yes, please give this video a like, share it around.
To raise awareness for a different perspective than the actual makers of the documentary have offered.
Yeah, let's remember who the real victims are.
That's right.
The animals.
Give the video a like to help it get viewed more.
And make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and ding that bell so that you're notified every time we upload a new video.
And remember until next time that going vegan is not the most we can do.
It's the least we can do. See you next video.
Bye guys.